The Sunset House. May he give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed. Psalm 24, NIV. From the late 70s to the early 90s, there was a hit television show on CBS called Dallas. It was essentially a soap opera that centered around a family that owned a large ranch in Texas called South Fork Ranch. The property where the series was filmed was located about 25 miles north of the real Dallas. That's where we filmed the video for God Bless Texas. The concept was thought of by director Jerry Winter. The main portion of the video shows the band set up at the front entrance of the ranch performing the song. He also had a group of beautiful girls there too for B-roll footage. We sat around sipping on drinks by a huge pool that was located on the grounds, with girls in bikinis walking all around us. Again, I had no idea that Jerry had spent other days filming other scenes for the video. He had even filmed the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders on the football field dancing to the song. There's no telling how much time and money was spent shooting all the footage. We released the song and video on July 17, 1993. We had just come off the success of What Might Have Been, and we knew this single had to be a strong one. We were all a little nervous, though, because of the overtly Texas-themed content. We were worried that the radio stations in places like Lexington, Kentucky, or Tucson, Arizona wouldn't even play the song about Texas. However, we felt that if the Beach Boys had a hit song about California girls, then why couldn't we have one about Texas girls? It was a risk we were willing to take. We had been playing the song live, and the feedback from the crowd was always positive no matter where we played it. We started closing our shows with it. We'd play the first 9 notes of the college anthem, The Eyes of Texas, at the beginning of the song each night just to work up the crowd. During a small break in the schedule, I went home to visit my parents in Ohio. I was exhausted, and I didn't know which way was up. Anxiety was creeping in without even realizing it. I was starting to not sleep well at night, and I was drinking antacid medicine, Maalox, every day to settle my stomach. One day, while trying to calm down, I got a call from Christy asking if I could come back to Nashville and record a song for an Eagles tribute record. Warner Brothers was going to release it and have some of their artists record their own versions of Eagles hits. I had mixed feelings about it. I was a huge Eagles fan, and I felt that recording one of their songs would be too much like walking on sacred ground. Christy also didn't know which artists on the label would be a part of it. I was so tired during that time, and I had just settled in for 3 or 4 days to visit with my mom and dad. I really didn't want to make the trip to Nashville and possibly be a part of a project that might turn out cheesy. I said no. I told Christy to go ahead and record the tune without me. The guys recorded Peaceful Easy Feelin', and O'Brien sang it. When I heard the final mix, I was blown away. He sounded great, and I loved the tracks Porter laid down on the recording. The harmonies sounded fantastic. After I got back out on the road with them, they told me that Travis Tritt had recorded Take It Easy. Travis had asked the guys in the Eagles if they'd make an appearance in the video, and they said yes. Don Henley, Glenn Frey, Don Felder, and Timothy B. Schmidt were all there. The Eagles had split up acrimoniously in 1980, with Henley famously saying the band would get back together when hell freezes over. Frey had been reluctant up to that point to join back up with the band. Once the video shoot had happened and he met with Henley, they talked about a reunion. Frey was quoted, "After years passed, you really sort of remember you were friends first. I just remembered how much we genuinely had liked each other and how much fun we'd had." I had no idea when I turned down playing on that record it would turn out to be a monumental musical event. Looking back, I know it was a bad decision on my part. The record was titled Common Thread, Songs of the Eagles. If I'm not mistaken, it ultimately sold over 3 million albums. The record and the video were the impetus for the Eagles getting back together for the mega successful Hell Freezes Over tour. The coolest part about performing Peaceful Easy Feeling was when we got the chance to play the song months later live in Nashville on TNN. We were backstage warming up before the show, singing another Eagles song, Seven Bridges Road, when Don Henley poked his head in our dressing room and said, "Sounds familiar." We all fell out. We had no idea he was listening to us on the other side of the door. Evidently, he was supposed to be on the show as well to talk about his experience of being a part of the Eagles tribute record. At the time, I only had one or two artists that I really wanted to meet in my lifetime. One was Don Henley. The other was Paul McCartney. I had checked off one, and he was as nice as he could be. We had just gotten off the road touring with Clint Black on his Hardway tour when CAA secured another large package tour for us. We were scheduled to open the show for Travis Tritt and Trisha Yearwood. It was called the Rockin' Country Tour, sponsored by Budweiser. The tour hit major towns all across America. We mainly played in large amphitheaters and stadiums, and the crowds went wild. Travis really did it up right. The sound and the lighting rigs were top of the line. He also had large screens on each side of the stage and had a video production team filming every angle possible. Ken Cragen, Travis and Trisha's manager, brought in a guy named Joe Layton to coordinate everyone's nightly performances. Joe was a highly successful Broadway choreographer that had won an Emmy Award and a Tony Award in the past. He also directed and produced shows for Paul Lindy, Hal Linden, Richard Pryor, and Olivia Newton-John. He'd also worked on specials starring Cher, The Carpenters, Diana Ross, Dolly Parton, Carol Burnett, and Willie Nelson. We had never worked with someone before for staging and choreography, but Joe made it fun. He also gave us his suggestions about which songs to put in our set list and where to put them in the running order. He even offered up his opinion on cutting certain sections out of songs so they would be more powerful. Everything he suggested was minimal but very effective. No wonder he was an award winner. He also recommended that at the end of each night, all three acts do something special together on stage. Travis chose a Hank Williams Jr. song called We Are Young Country to make that happen. Each artist sang lyrics from the song, and it made for a superb way to end the show. Sadly, a short time after working with us, Joe passed away in his home in Florida. One night is still etched in my mind where I came to the stage for the last song and everyone was just standing around. They said that Travis was going to just rock out for a while and play some classic Southern rock songs instead. I just stood there with the guys from Little Texas and listened to Tritt rattle off some Marshall Tucker and Bob Seger tunes. After he got done with the next song, he waved for us all to come out on stage with him. I turned to the guys and nodded and started to walk out there with him. I thought for sure that they were going to follow since we all had made eye contact. I walked halfway to Travis, then looked around, and the guys weren't there. They didn't follow me. There I was, all alone, in front of a stadium full of people by myself with Travis and his band. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. He whispered in my ear, "You take the verses and I take the chorus." I was like a deer caught in the headlights. I could hear the band vamping the signature lick for Lynyrd Skynyrd's song Call Me the Breeze. I was familiar with it, but certainly didn't know the lyrics to the verses. I yelled back over the distorted guitars, "I don't know the lyrics to the verses. Can I sing the chorus?" I didn't even know if he heard me, and I thought my heart was going to beat out of my chest. Luckily, Travis realized I didn't know what I was doing, and he stepped up and started singing the first verse. I winged it when the chorus came around and just sang harmony with him. It was crazy. I couldn't believe that the guys of Little Texas left me hanging out there alone. We all laughed about it later. That year of the Rockin' Country Tour was truly insane. Little Texas had become friends with the rock band Firehouse. I remember hanging out on a houseboat on some lake somewhere and having a ball. We also got to hang out with Bret Michaels from Poison out in L.A. I can't recall too many of the details other than we got to listen to some of the music he was writing in the studio. And we also got to visit the White House. We had gotten a call to fill in for the band Take Six. They were supposed to perform with Kenny G and Whitney Houston and had something come up where they couldn't do it. I thought we were an odd replacement, but we did it anyway. We met the Vice President, Al Gore, and toured the White House. I guess Bill was off somewhere running the country. I still have a picture of me sitting at the Steinway grand piano in the East Room that Harry Truman and Richard Nixon had played. Right after releasing God Bless Texas, the label chose My Love to be the next single. I couldn't believe it. I was thrilled to death, but nervous. We had just had 2 #1 songs, and I didn't want the song I sang to ruin our streak. I was told that we were going to film the video on Grand Cayman Island. I even got to pick out the girl that was going to co-star in it with me. Jerry Winter, the same guy who directed God Bless Texas, was chosen to direct it. We all met to talk about the concept, and he said that he imagined it looking like the old 1953 Academy Award-winning film From Here to Eternity. He thought that it would be cool to shoot the video in black and white. I went along with whatever Jerry and the record label suggested. When they decided that it was really going to happen, I started working out like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I knew I was going to be half naked rolling on the beach with a beautiful woman. I spent every spare moment of each day training and eating right. My new friend Jeff that played for Clint Black suggested a workout routine to get in shape. He suggested that I even shave all the hair off my body, just like the bodybuilders do, to look ripped on the beach. Reluctantly, I did. We headed down to the island in December of '93. I remember the first time I saw Sue Laguna in person, the girl that was going to be my lover in the video. She was gorgeous and had beautiful eyes. I had picked her out from several different models to play opposite of me. I knew she'd be perfect for the video. Sue was so kind and professional during the whole shoot. There was never a romantic connection between the scenes, even though we got along wonderfully. When it came time for the beach scene, we agreed not to touch lips on camera. We felt the anticipation would be a nice element. We spent the next 5 days shooting scenes on the beach and swimming with the stingrays at Stingray City. I had been there years before while I had been in the 50s band The Varsities, and to be back there again felt great. Little Texas, Sue, and the film crew stayed at the hotel right by the beach called the Sunset House. That's where Sue filmed all of the close-up shots of her underneath the waterfall. The waterfall was right there in the hotel pool. Our friend at Warner Brothers, Gene Dries, facilitated the whole experience. He arranged and coordinated the Cayman Island visit, from free rooms and diving at the Sunset House, as well as securing a number of other freebies from other businesses and the government. All he asked in return was a product shot somewhere in the video. At the very last minute, Jerry, the director, wasn't thrilled about putting logos in the video, but thanks to Christie interceding, he showed the Sunset House logo on the seawall in the final cut. You can also see scenes in the video of Sue and me at Smith's Cove, 7 Mile Beach, in the abandoned set on the North Sound used by the movie The Firm. The only time the whole band was shown was at the very end of the video. It's an unforgettable silhouette shot of us on the rocks of the beach. Jerry made us appear bigger than life. The single was released in January of 1994, and My Love went on to be our third #1 song. It soared to the top of the chart on April the 2nd and stayed at #1 for 2 weeks. It was our only #1 song on the Billboard chart. The 2 singles before it had not reached #1 on there, but they did reach the top spot on the R&R, Radio and Records chart. The video also received CMA's Video of the Year award that year. As part of the coverage of the video shoot, the television show Entertainment Tonight came out and covered the making of the video as well. A day of scuba diving with the band while Sue and I were engaging in skin, sun, and sand. I was told later that the E.T. video piece was the longest music-related segment that they ran in 1994. The band performed an unplugged set on the deck at a place called My Bar that was taped by E.T., and we performed what might have been as the play-out music for the episode. Before the single had been released, I had promised myself that if My Love went to #1, I would buy myself a Harley. I had always wanted one, even though my dad had told the story of him almost dying on one back in the 60s. Sure enough, I went over to the Harley dealership off White Bridge Road in Nashville and picked out a gray and white Heritage Softail Special. I remember getting it in the wintertime and it was freezing outside. I called my friend Greg, who had a Harley too, and we went for a ride that day anyway. I didn't even have my motorcycle license yet, but it didn't hold me back. I had to do it. I about froze myself to death, but that didn't stop me from celebrating another one of God's blessings. I hadn't owned my own bike since I was a kid. Dad had bought me a little yellow Suzuki RM80 when I was about 13 years old. It felt good to get in the wind again. It also felt good to have 3 #1 songs in a row. I'd go on to win ASCAP's Triple Play Award winner that year. The boys and I were appearing on shows like the nationally syndicated show Live with Regis and Kathy Lee and all of the Nashville Network shows. We were invited to plug in and play at the Grand Ole Opry several times too, and got to hang out backstage with the king of country music, Roy Acuff, and the possum, George Jones. I met artists such as Dolly Parton, Waylon Jennings, Billy Gibbons, ZZ Top, Merle Haggard, Ginger Baker of Cream, and so many more that I can't even recall. I was dumbfounded by all of the opportunities that were coming my way. I was also able to shake hands for the first time with my relative Dan Seals, not long before he passed away. He was one of the most gentle human beings I have ever come in contact with. I kept writing nonstop, and I was recording demos as fast as I could. Porter and I had come up with a song that we thought was in the same vein as God Bless Texas called Kick a Little, and we were hoping it would catapult us to the top once again. The band had been in the studio every chance we could recording our next project that would come out after Big Time. We felt like we had a good set of songs that were just a little deeper and had more substance than our last record. We certainly felt like we were maturing as a band. We had also taken some really cool pictures for the CD cover up in New York after receiving a handsome budget to go shopping for new clothes. We ended the trip with a traditional Italian meal at a little place on Mulberry Street called La Mela. That was some of the best food I've ever eaten. Hamstein Music had set up a writing appointment for me with a guy named Stephen Allen Davis at my home in Bellevue. I had been told that Stephen had written Percy Sledge's song Take Time to Know Her when he was just a kid. I was impressed and couldn't wait to set in on our tune. He came in that day and had the title Amy's Back in Austin, and I loved it. He told me that he had visited a place in Austin called La Zona Rosa Cafe and loved the name of the restaurant and thought it would be a good name for a song. He later changed it to Amy's Back in Austin, and thankfully he did. It went on to be a top 5 single for us on the charts, and the video was nominated for a Grammy. The other song on that record that really stood out for me was Redneck Like Me. It was one that I sang lead on. Our co-writing friend Jay Booker wrote it by himself. Jay had come out on the road once or twice with us to see if we could write together. We weren't able to co-write anything that made it on the CD, but I remember him playing the Redneck song, and I loved it the way that it was. Ultimately, we finished the CD and turned it into Warner Brothers. I had written 8 out of the 10 songs that made the cut. The other 2 songs were Jay's song Redneck Like Me and Your Days Are Numbered, written by Porter and O'Brien. It had been a long, tedious year gathering all the material needed to make it happen. I was so glad it was over. Luckily, there was time to breathe and let loose for a while. Blessings, even in sin. God never ceases to amaze me. He blesses us even when we sin. I was having one-night stands and smoking pot every other night. My ego was out of hand and I was caught up in greed and worldly possessions. Look at King David again. David was a believer, but he kept committing sins. And what did God do? He continued to love and be there for him. Ultimately, David was punished for his sins, but the punishment was just and came from love. Hebrews 12:6 NIV says, Because the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts as his son, but he still blesses us. I know he still blessed me when I was living my life in sin. He continued to give me songs to have good income, accolades, and let me see the world. He didn't have to do that. Just like he didn't have to be there for David. God could have easily ended David's life or mine with a snap of a finger, but instead he helped David and me up. He guided me like the shepherd that he is. He would eventually lead me to a better and more uncontaminated life. Thankfully, we have a merciful God. The Bible also teaches that we may not be blessed while sinning as well. Wherefore the Lord God of Israel saith, I say indeed that thy house and the house of thy father should walk before me forever. But now the Lord saith, Be it far from me, for them that honor me I will honor, and they that despise me shall be lightly esteemed. 1 Samuel 2:30, King James Version. The wise thing to do is honor God and stay in his word and obey it. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I have commanded thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field. Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 3, King James Version. The good news is God has big blessings for all of us. His blessings can come in different forms at various times, under all types of circumstances, and from a multitude of sources. He desires to give all of them to us. Go and proclaim these words towards the north, and say, Return, thou backsliding Israel, saith the Lord, and I will not cause mine anger to fall upon you. For I am merciful, saith the Lord, and I will not keep anger forever. Jeremiah 3:12, King James Version.